In this video, I'll talk about what academics mean when they talk about fitting into an institution. Fit is one of those things that you often hear as a candidate for a position. You have to fit into the institution or into the department in order to be viable in it. But what does that actually mean? I've identified at least four, what are my hands doing? I've identified at least four types of ways that you might think of fit and how you would approach fit when you're interviewing for a position. Every single department and really every single unit within a university has its own intellectual style and its own intellectual bias, really, in terms of how they approach inquiry, what counts, what doesn't count, what sort of research is more supported versus ignored. And it's important to get a feel for what that is, because that'll tell you if you fit intellectually within that university culture or within that departmental culture. One of the things to look for is, what's the composition look like? What do faculty who are already there study? This can be as nitty-gritty as their specific intellectual approach, such as only doing quantitative methods versus qualitative methods, but it could mean a lot of different things. But it's important for you to get a good feel for where the momentum is in a department, and that'll give you a sense of whether or not you might fit into it. Collaboration is another type of way that you might think of intellectual fit. Do folks collaborate, or do you see them publish with each other a lot? Or do you see people work more independently from one another, all doing really good things, but generally focused on their own work and not really cross-pollinating? Understanding intellectual fit is one of the ways that'll let you know what it would be like to work there. Would you be isolated, really just working on your own stuff? Would you work with others? There are lots of different ways that we can be successful as academics and as professors, but it's important for you to know exactly what success means and how to get it within a specific institutional and or departmental context. Think about the university as a whole or the institution as a whole, because you'll learn some things about how they approach success or how they define success, really. One of the easiest ways to do this, although it's a little rough, is to use the Carnegie classification system. If it's an R1 institution, for example, that means it's a research-intensive institution. Everyone there, all the tenure-line faculty, are primarily focused on producing research. This has implications for what is expected of you as a potential faculty member. There are subtle differences in research-intensive universities. For example, there are elite R1s. These are highly productive research institutions where the expectations to publish are a little higher than even traditional R1s. Then there are R1s and R2s that are research focused, but might not necessarily have the same expectations for how many publications and grants you might get. Then there are softer ways to think about softer. Prestige is another somewhat nebulous way to think about an institution. Prestige is one of these things where it's almost, you can think about it as manufactured scarcity. Things are prestigious because not many people get them. Prestige, however, doesn't necessarily just mean that the university is prestigious. There can be prestigious departments in institutions that aren't seen as overall prestigious. You can be in one of those departments, and that'll set you up really well versus being in a department that's not as well regarded, even though it sits within a university that is well regarded. Another thing to think about when it comes to institutional fit is staff. Often staff are folks who really let you do your job effectively. They enable you to really hit the ground running. They help you with grants, all the paperwork. So it's important for you to know as a junior faculty member what the staffing is like. What's the granting apparatus like? And get to know staff people. Get to know what it is they contribute, because it's important to really see yourself as a part of a team and to understand what the capacity is. So if there's a large department, but not that many staff members, what that might suggest to you is that staff might be overworked. And that has implications for you, because we don't work in isolation. Chances are you're not necessarily going to just be the person doing all the paperwork. That's going to have to be handed off to someone at some point when it comes to grants. So it's important for you to understand the capacity of your department. Location also matters. I got into location a little bit when I discussed postdocs and other opportunities, but really location matters when it comes to fit because you're living in the place. So is it urban? Is it suburban? Is it a college town? Is it rural? All these factors matter because fit is about what enables you to be successful. And even if you're in a wonderful place, but that place is located in a place that you don't necessarily want to live, then there might not be alignment. You might not actually want to work that hard because you're dealing with a lot of stuff outside of work that might just really undermine your productivity. There's also cultural fit. Culture is really a catch-all term for how do people deal with each other and what do those interactions look like. And when you sort of aggregate them, that becomes the culture of the institution, of the unit, of the department, of your small group of colleagues that you might work with closely. But really understanding what that culture is and what you need out of it is essential. For example, is there an expectation that you should socialize a lot with your faculty peers? If so, and if that's something you like, great. You'll sort of have this blurred boundary between professional and personal. Some people really like that. I am okay with it. It's not something I seek out, but at the same time, I know that about myself. One of the most important ways that this manifests itself is in politics and how disagreements are navigated. Some departments are petty. Like, there's just no other way to say it. People find petty reasons to pick fights and win battles that really are of no consequence to the work, but there is interpersonal tension and you have to deal with it. It's annoying, but it's there. This doesn't have to be like a Game of Thrones type situation. Instead, they can be subtle and subtle disagreements, but that still have implications for you. So it's important to know what the politics are like. And it's important to also understand that every single place will have some sort of political structure. And it's important for you to be tuned into it so that you know how you fit into it. And whether or not you want to, you will fit in somewhere. You could ignore most of it, you can engage with some of it, but you will always be present within that political atmosphere. So it's important for you to understand what it is and how you might engage with it, and really which parts you don't want to engage with. Getting outside of the negative, it also matters for information. Who knows what? How do they know it? Who are the information brokers? How much of the information is codified in documents versus how much of the information do you just have to happen to know the right person to ask? All of this gets to fit because some people are proactive when it comes to seeking information, whereas others need a little bit more structure. So it's important for you as someone who's entering into a new environment to know what you tend to look for when it comes to information and getting information. The final part of fit, in my view, is you. What do you tend to like? You are the person that keeps fitting into an institutional culture. You're the piece that fits or doesn't fit. You decide what parts of yourself you're going to contort in order to fit into a certain environment, and what parts of you are more rigid and unwilling to yield. So it's important for you to have a really good understanding over what it is you like and dislike and where compromises can happen, because they will need to happen. For example, you might not want to be the type of academic who just publishes a lot year over year in that high pressure environment. There are no wrong answers here. Where do you want to be? What type of career do you want to have? And it's important for you to think about these answers early, because most of us who are professors don't move a lot. There are some moves, but for the most part, faculty aren't jumping from job to job to job. So it's important for you to answer these questions for yourself early so that you're not sort of stuck, or you feel like you're stuck in a place that's fine, but that you're not necessarily wanting to build out a career in.